Hi, so I've been working on the sign and I decided to record my process that I'm doing it in, so that you can see how I did it, why I did what I did. Anyway, so sorry if you can hear my kid in the background playing Minecraft. There's some very serious creeper issues going on that I guess some zombies need to be killed. I don't know what's happening with that. But anyway. Okay, so I opened up Design Space. Here you can see that I have it set to a new project. The first thing that I like to do is check here, make sure I have the correct machine selected if you have more than one machine, so it doesn't yell at you later and tell you that your sizes don't work. So the next thing we want to do is we want to just start creating our text. So our first thing we're going to make is the word home. So we're going to just select it, go up here to our fonts, right to search. We want Times New Roman, so super easy on that one. Now, we want to stack these letters, so we're going to ungroup them. Now they're not text anymore, like I explained earlier. They are going to be objects that you can move. So we're going to stack them. Don't worry too much about getting them in there too neatly, because we're going to center them horizontally and they will realign themselves. And we will also distribute vertically to put them evenly spaced in whichever space we give them. So we want the letters to be about 5 inches wide each. So we're going to select 5 inches. Now you can see that that gives us a height of 18.24 inches, which would mean we would need nearly 37 inches of our space, of our 39 inches, in order to put the 2 homes on there, and that wouldn't leave much room for the suite. So what I'm going to do is zoom out so we can see a little better. And I'm going to take the letters individually, and using my arrow keys on my keyboard, I'm just going to move this up 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks. And then I'm going to do the same with the N, 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks. And I'm going to do the same with the E, 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks with the arrow. I'm going to select it again, and that brought us down to 17.84, which is still a little bit more than we want to use. So first I'm going to distribute them again so that they're evenly spaced. And then I'm going to select again and just go up, like maybe 1 more for each one, maybe even 2 on that M, and 1 more on that E, and then I'm going to select them all again using Control A. Make sure that I didn't really move them anywhere, which I don't think that I did, and distribute them again. That puts us at 17.74. That's still a bit more than we really want to use for the words home and still have room for suite. So while we have it all selected, we can just steal 1/2 inch from here. So we'll do 4.5 inches wide. That would add an extra 1/4 inch on each side. I assure you, no one looking at the sign is going to be like, oh, it's off by a 1/4 inch, right? It's just the tiniest bit smaller, but that puts us in a very comfortable range here, because now we only need to get to approximately 32 inches with the 2 homes, and that leaves us the rest of the space. Now I'm looking at that thinking I don't need 7 inches for the word suite. It's just, that's way too much. So we'll take 1/8 of an inch on each side back, and we'll do this at 4 3/4, which gets us closer to the 5 we wanted. And more comfortably, it puts us somewhere in the neighborhood of around 34 inches, and that gives us 5 inches for the word suite. So you play around with your sizes, and you get to the point that you're comfortable. Once you've done that and we have this nice size home, I will double check because I can't remember, but make sure that everything is aligned and distributed. Now you will need 2 homes, and you don't want to do that work twice. So we're going to copy this, but first we're going to attach these letters to each other. Now the reason that we attach is because if we go to make it, it's going to put those letters wherever it wants those letters, because they think they're saving vinyl for us, or cardstock, whatever people are using. But I don't actually want that. So I'm going to select all of my letters and attach them. Now they are attached to each other, so they travel together. And when we go onto our mat, it's going to cut it like so, which is exactly what we want. Keep in mind when cutting vinyl that you do need that little buffer space above the top, And I can't explain to you why Design Space is always yelling at me that my design is larger than my mat, when you can clearly see it is not. But okay. Anyway, so that's how home will cut for you in one piece, so you can move it with one piece of transfer tape for the word. And that way you don't have to worry about not lining up those letters vertically. So we have that set now. That's our one. I'm going to do Control C and Control V, and that's a copy and a paste. And now I have my two. You can also just right click, or if you're on a Mac or an iPad or whatever, however you copy and paste or duplicate, you have those options. So you have your home, you have your home. Those are the two that we're going to start working with. First, it's not going to let me zoom out anymore, so we're just going to have to kind of make do on this. But we ultimately would like to make sure this is lined up, and we would like to make it 32 inches. So you see I have it at 37 right now. So I'm just going to take this bottom home and slide it down. And, oh wow, that was pretty close. I got to go just the tiniest bit more on it. So we just move it just a little bit. All right, so it's at 39.064. We'll get that 0.064 back after we put the word sweet in, because we want to make sure that we have it nice and comfortable here in the center before we adjust the top and the bottom for their final state. So we have one and we have two. Now we make the word sweet. All right, so we have the word sweet. We're typing it here. I'm going to move it. Whoopsie, that was an accident. I'm going to move it over here and out of the way because I want to zoom in on it. I want it to look nice and big right now while we work on it. And the reason is because I want to be able to see the edges of the letters as we're working. So we want it to be 5 inches wide like everything else. So that's our nice big letters here. Let's drop that down. And then we're going to go here and we're going to pick our Bickley script. Now the one that you picked, Bickley Script Com, is a Cricut Access font. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but if not, if you use a Cricut font in one of your projects, they will try to charge you for it when you go to make it, unless you have Cricut Access. If you're a Cricut Access member, then you'll download the font and you'll use it, and that's fine. You can also start a free trial of Cricut Access, and that will also give you access to their fonts. I think the trial is like a week long, and then they charge you whatever it is, like $10 a month. So here's the Bickley script. Of course, in the event that you don't want to pay for anything at all, then obviously we can pick a different font, and you'll know how to adjust it after watching this video. So you'll see the script font. We have a little issue of our letters are not touching, and nobody likes scripts with the letters not touching. So I've done some trial and error on this font, and I figured out the letter spacing, which you adjust here, right? It moves your letters closer together. Now you can go into the negatives, and I have learned that some are too close, and when they're too close and you try to weld them, it will fill in some of your spaces, such as this E right here. And we don't want that. So I'm going to Control Z. As long as I haven't saved, I can undo my moves. And Control Z on a PC, I don't know how you do it on a Mac, but it's the undo button. You also have this button right here as your undo button. So if you weld it and immediately notice it's not going to work, you can undo it. If you're like, oh wait, maybe it will work for me, you can redo it. But I'm going to undo it. It does take some trial and error to figure out the best size. If you see that your letter fills in like that, it means that the letters are too close. So it doesn't want to weld it. So we have to find something a size that works, that can weld, but that the letters are still close enough for us. So this size worked. I'm going to undo it again, see what that size was in the letter spacing. It was a -1. Now, I'm still not that happy that these are not that close, so I'm going to do -1 0.2 because you can do decimals and see it will move it a little bit closer, and then I'm going to try it again and see if it welds. Well, it filled in both of my dots, so that's definitely not going to work for me. So back to my undo. And we'll do a 1.1. And we'll try it again. We're still having a little bit of an issue here with this guy. So we can do 1.07. Right? Still takes it out just a little bit, but we are able to weld it now. So you can see that the letters are all together and they will cut as one piece now. If you don't weld it, but you just attach it, when the maker goes to cut it, it's going to still cut the letters individually. So right here, it will cut out the W and the E separately, even though they're touching, and then you'll actually have cuts inside your letters, which you definitely do not want to have. So I think that that looks pretty good like that. We have it set, we're going to set this back to 5 inches because that's the size that we want, and we're going to zoom our whole thing back out so we can get to our sign, which is really big. So we're going to move on over here. With the word sweet, because you're putting it on an angle, you can actually cheat a little bit too, and you can make it slightly larger than the other things because it's not going to stay. So with this one, you have like a little angle here that it's on, right? And so it's still only 5.1 wide, so we can actually cheat that up to 5.5, and it can be just slightly, ever so slightly wider than the rest, and it's not going to look much wider than, say, the M. You can also unlock it and make it slightly larger this way. Okay, I think that was too much, so I'm going back to my little undo button that I like so much. I'm going to unlock this right here, and I'm going to just make this the tiniest bit bigger, make it 3.5 inches high. And that doesn't really affect the font too much, but it does make it look nice. So now our 3 pieces are made. We have our welded sweet, we have our attached homes. We're going to select them all, and one more time, we're going to center them horizontally. Now, you will see that we have this like 0.64, so we can just take this, and it can afford to do that, right? So we're going to take that, and it puts us just under 39. You could even just, 39, if you wanted to. This is really negligible, like it's really not even a noticeable size for most people. So I think that's close enough to being within the confines, and that's what we have as Home Sweet Home. So now when we go to make it, you will see that it's going to cut on your mat, yelling at me again. You could slide this over to give yourself a little bit of room to cut it out later. And here is your word sweet. Now, obviously, you're going to place it like so, but it can cut in any direction because you're going to place it by itself. So now you would put your vinyl on up to around 21 inches or so, and around, I would go like 11 inches wide. You could, if you're worried about the edges, you could move this and center it just a little bit more. So it's just more comfortable if you're worried about it, about the edges of the vinyl. So that's that, and then you would continue through the process of the cutting. What I would suggest is that when you're placing it, you measure from the top and bottom and mark it very lightly, and put the top of the top H on that line at, an even distance, and the bottom of this E also at that line, and then that will allot the perfect amount of space in the center for you to center the word sweet. So I'm going to cancel this cut. I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to figure out how to send this to you. So if you have any questions, definitely text me and let me know, and I hope I don't sound too ridiculous. Cool. Have a good night.